Continuing our study of solving quadratic equations, the methods that we have to do, and we've talked about the method of factoring. Another method we have is solving with square roots. So let's look at first the equation that you see here to the left. X is equal to the square root of 49. So this is a linear equation. I know it's linear because the variable x is only raised to the first power. So this can have one solution, no solution, or infinitely many solutions if it's a linear equation. But x is the square root of 49. You know the square root of 49 is 7. So the solution here is x equal 7. When you take the square root of 49, you're saying what positive number can you multiply by itself and get 49? That answer is 7. Now it's a little bit different when I see x squared equals 49. This is a quadratic equation. And the interpretation is the solution would be all the numbers you can square and get 49. Well, one of the numbers is 7. You can square 7 and get 49, but there's also another number which is negative 7, because negative 7 squared is 49. So negative 7, when you square that, you get 49. So this has two solutions. So here I had one solution, and here I have two solutions. So that's the special attention you have to pay when you're solving a quadratic versus a linear. So keep in mind the difference. This is what number is the square root of 49? That's 7. What number or numbers can you square and get 49? The way we typically solve this equation is when we have x squared equal 49, then we take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared, and I'm going to get plus or minus the square root of 49. The square root of x squared is the absolute value of x, which is a little bit complicated, but just keep in mind, anytime you're taking the square root of a variable squared, you're going to get two answers here. Most people would just go from this statement to say x is plus or minus the square root of 49, x equal plus or minus 7. Okay? So keep in mind with a quadratic, you're going to have two solutions. There'll be real solutions in this class. There could be complex solutions in your class beyond this. So if we look at this, I could solve this by factoring. So if I look at this, the common factor is 7. So x squared minus, and so see 7 goes into there. Let's be a 1, and that leaves me 4216. Then this is 7, x plus 4, x minus 4 equals 0. The solution is x equal plus or minus 4. Now I could solve by taking the square roots. If you want to solve by taking the square roots, you want to get the square root term all by itself. So 7x squared minus 112 equals 0. 7x squared equals 112. I could divide both sides by 7. X squared equals 16. And once I get there, I know that x is going to be plus or minus the square root of 16. X equals plus or minus 4. Now to get from this x squared to the x equal plus or minus, there's nothing that happens mathematically that's automatic. You have to know that there are two answers. When you square this, you're getting two answers. So you have to bring the knowledge of that plus or minus. So when can we solve something by square roots? So we've been looking at ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. There's no way to isolate the x squared term here and not have another. I've got an x squared and an x term, so I can't take the square root of both sides. But if that middle term, if the linear x term is missing, then you can solve with square roots. okay, you can get the square term all by itself and take the square root of both sides. So in this case, you would have x squared equals negative 1, x equals plus or minus the square root of negative 1. Now in this class, we're just going to say no solution. Technically, there's no real solution. There are complex solutions. I know I keep harping on that. I just hate to say no solution because I know mathematically that's wrong. Algebra 2, you'll learn how to take the complex solution to this. But the square root of a negative number, there is no real number you can multiply by itself and get a negative. This one, you've got x squared equals 2. So x is going to be plus or minus the square root of 2. And those are your answers. Here, get the square term all by itself. X minus 1 squared equals 4. Now, to take the square root of both sides, you're going to get x minus 1 equal plus or minus the square root of 4. That means that x minus 1 equals plus or minus 2. Then I'm going to add 1 to both sides. X equals 1 plus or minus 2. Now we don't leave this answer like this. X, what is 1 plus 2? That is 3. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So again, the steps are get the squared term all by itself. Then when you take the square root of both sides, you'll have a plus or minus answer. If I divide both sides here by 2, I get x minus 2 squared equals 25. Now if I take the square root of both sides, x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 25. X minus 2 equals plus or minus 5. X equals 2 plus or minus 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Now you know these are right. If I were to plug in a 7 here, 7 minus 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. Double it, you get 50. Plug in a negative 3. Negative 3, negative 2, that's negative 5. Square it, you get 25. Double it, you get 50. So there are two answers. A cell phone tower has a guy wire for support as shown. The height of the tower and the distance from the tower where the guy wire is secured are the same distance. Those are labeled there. What is the height of the tower? So I've got this right angle here, Pythagorean theorem. What is it? X squared plus x squared equals 200. 2x squared equals 200. Divide by 2. X squared equals 100. Now take the square root of both sides. X is plus or minus the square root of 100. X equals plus or minus 10. Now in the context of this problem, what is the height of the tower? Okay, it's going to be 10 feet, right? This is a case where you ignore the negative answer, since we're only dealing with positive quantities. Use vertex form to write the equation of this parabola. So in vertex form, the vertexes are right there at 4, 0. So remember vertex form, a x minus h squared plus k. So f of x is equal to a x minus 4 squared plus 0. Let's find another point here. It looks like the point 5, 2. So 2 is equal to a 5 minus 4 squared. 2 is equal to, that's just a. So this formula, f of x, is 2, x minus 4 squared. Solve f of x equals 6. Well, here's f of x. So 2 x minus 4 squared equals 6. Divide both sides by 2. X minus 4 squared equals 3. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 3. Add 4 to both sides. X equals 4 plus or minus square root of 3. And that's your final answer. Solve f of x equals 0. 2 x minus 4 squared equals 0. Divide both sides by 2. You get x minus 4 squared equals 0. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 0. X minus 4 equals square root of 0. That's just going to be 0, so x equals 4. This one I could have seen in the graph. Where is the y value equal to 0? It only happens when x is 4. F of x equals negative 1. Where is the y value equal to negative 1? I can see graphically there's no solution. Let's try it algebraically. So 2 x minus 4 squared equals negative 1. Divide by 2. X minus 4 squared equals minus 1/2. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 4 equal plus or minus the square root of minus 1/2. That's where I get no solution because I'm taking the square root of a negative number. Solve f of x equal 2x minus 4. So what is 2x minus 4? 2x minus 4 is a line, right? So 2x minus 4, there's your y-intercept. The slope is 2. So that's the line right there. So this line, and let's just change this color. So that's the line 2x minus 4. So where does the parabola equal 2x minus 4? It looks like they intersect at 2 points right there. So there should be 2 values for that guy. Let's do it algebraically. So 2x minus 4 squared equals 2x minus 4. Now in this one, I can't really do something like taking the square root of both sides because I've got this x term. What is x minus 4 squared? So x minus 4 squared, that's x squared minus 8x plus 16. So 2, x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 2x minus 4. 2x squared minus 16x plus 32 equals 2x minus 4. If I subtract 2x and add 4 on both sides, this gives me what? 2x squared minus 18x plus 36 equals 0. I can solve this by factoring. If I factor out a 2, x squared minus 9x plus 18 equals 0. So what numbers will multiply to 18? So numbers that multiply to 18 and add to negative 9, I think that's a 3 and a 6, both being negative. So this is 2. X minus 3, x minus 6 equals 0. X is 3 or 6. We'll go back and look at that graph. Here's 1, 2, 3. X equals 3 and x equals 6 are the two solutions there. The legs of a right triangle have sides that are 2x and 3x feet. So right triangle, 2x, 3x. Hypotenuse is 150. Solve for x. So 2x squared plus 3x squared equals 150 squared. So this is what, 4x squared plus 9x squared equals, what is that, 22,500. So 13 x squared equals 22,500. So x squared equals 22,500 over 13. So x is going to be plus or minus the square root of that. So 22,500 over 13. You could leave the answer. So if I look at this, this x value can only be positive, even though algebraically I get two answers. Then in this one, the only answer I'm going to get is the square root of 22,500 over 13 feet. That's my exact answer. You could approximate it with your calculator. The graph here, I'll give you a parabola. Write it in vertex form. Well, that means I need to find the vertex. The vertex is what? 4, 6. And then a is equal to 1. So f of x equals a, x minus h squared plus k. So this is f of x equals, a is 1, what is it, x minus 4 squared plus 6. Solve when this thing is equal to 11. So x minus 4 squared plus 6 equal 11. That's going to be where the y value is equal to 11. I expect to get two answers. Okay, so subtract 6 from both sides. X minus 4 squared equals 5. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 4 is plus or minus the square root of 5. Add 4 to both sides. 4 plus or minus the square root of 5. Now that's your exact answer. The square root of 5, that is a number between, what, 2 and 3? So 4 plus a number between 2 and 3, that's going to be a number between 6 and 7. So if you look at the first answer that I get, a number between 6 and 7 is that guy right there. 4 minus a number between 2 and 3, that's going to be a number between 1 and 2. So that's going to give me this guy right here. That's where I get those two solutions. But this is your answer. You don't really need to use your calculator or approximate. You can just leave it like that. And that should lead us up into the homework for this section.